For a million years ago, the Earth was an entirely different place. It was not the world we know today, shaped by cities, civilizations, and technology. It was raw, primal, and merciless. The very soil beneath one's feet pulsed with the rhythm of ancient forces, volcanic tremors, thunderous storms, and the sound of migrating herds that stretched beyond the horizon. Life was everywhere, but so was death. It came swiftly, without warning, often cloaked in silence. The continents were shifting as tectonic plates slowly redefined the geography of Earth. What would one day become Africa was already a hotbed of evolutionary experimentation. The climate alternated between long periods of dry savanna and bursts of fertile growth after seasonal rains. Towering grasslands gave shelter to massive creatures, while patches of forest and rocky outcrops became sanctuaries and traps for smaller beings. Among these were some of the earliest ancestors of humanity. These early hominids, most likely members of the genus Australopithecus, stood barely over a meter tall. Their arms were long and strong, their legs short but sturdy. They moved on 2 feet, an evolutionary shift that gave them a better view over tall grass and freed their hand for tools or for carrying food and young. They were not hunters in the modern sense. They did not control fire, nor did they possess language as we know it. But they were watchers, listeners, survivors. Every day began with a cautious emergence from shelter. Some groups lived near trees, others in shallow caves. The night brought dangers they could not challenge. It belonged to predators. But as the sun rose and light returned to the plains, life stirred. The hominids ventured into the open, carefully scanning their surroundings. Their tools were primitive, sharp stones for cutting, sticks for digging or swatting insects. They foraged for berries, roots, and edible leaves. If they were lucky, they might find the leftover bones of a kill made by a larger predator. If the meat hadn't spoiled, and if the bones hadn't been picked clean by vultures, they would gather what they could. Their lives revolved around movement. Rarely did a group stay in the same location for long. Water sources dried up, food supplies were inconsistent, and danger was never far away. They traveled silently, using subtle gestures to communicate. A raised hand, a pointed finger, a sharp grunt. These could mean stop, or hide, or danger. Their communication was born out of necessity, forged by the urgency of survival. Among the many predators of this era, one reigned with unmatched terror: Machaerodus. A true monster of its time, it was a genus of saber-toothed cat that had evolved into the perfect ambush predator. Machaerodus was larger than any modern big cat. Its build was robust, its muscles thick and powerful, especially around the neck and forelimbs. But its most defining feature, and its deadliest, were the long, curved canine teeth that hung from its upper jaw like ivory daggers. These teeth were not just for display. They were designed to slice through flesh, to sever arteries, to end life in an instant. Machaerodus did not chase its prey across open plains. It did not rely on speed. It was a stalker, a shadow. It waited in tall grass, in the dappled darkness beneath trees, perfectly still, perfectly patient. It studied the herds. It watched for weakness. And when the moment came, it exploded with a terrifying burst of power and precision. The saber-like fangs would sink deep into the neck or throat of its victim, rupturing major blood vessels and bringing near immediate death to the hominids. Machaerodus was a nightmare made flesh. They had no defense against it. They had no fire to scare it away, no spears to keep it at bay. If it came for them, they ran, not out of cowardice, but because instinct told them that standing ground meant certain death. Entire families could vanish in seconds. A young hominid wandering too far from the group, a mother caught in the open with her child, a scout who lingered near a carcass. They were all vulnerable. When one disappeared, the others rarely searched. They knew the silence after a scream was answer enough. Nightfall was the hour of terror. As the sky darkened and the air cooled, the world changed. Sounds grew sharper, shadows longer. Eyes glowed in the distance, not from fear, but from hunger. The hominids would retreat to higher ground or thick brush, curling into one another for warmth and safety. They did not sleep deeply. One always stayed half awake, alert to the slightest snap of a twig, the subtle rustle of grass. There was no comfort, no true rest, only brief pauses between danger. But despite the constant threat, they adapted. They learned which plants made them sick and which nourished them. They memorized paths to water and escape routes through trees. They recognized the patterns of predator movement. They understood that vultures circling in the sky meant a kill nearby, a risk, but also an opportunity for food. They began to shape stones with intention, not just using what they found, but improving it. They were evolving slowly, deliberately. Their intelligence was their weapon. It wasn't brute strength or sharp claws that kept them alive. It was memory, communication, observation. While Machaerus ruled with muscle and fong, the hominids began to rule with thought. The bond between members of the group was everything. They protected one another. They mourned the lost. And over time, they began to teach, not with words, but with demonstration. A mother showing her child how to crack open nuts with stones. A scout showing another how to peel bark from trees to find insects. These were the seeds of culture, planted in a world that offered no mercy. The landscape around them was a battlefield of giants. Elephants with downward curving tusks, Deinotherium, roamed in loud, thundering herds. Herds of giant antelope migrated across the plains. Massive birds, flightless and aggressive, strutted near water holes, ready to strike with beaks like spears. Crocodiles longer than canoes lurked in the muddy rivers, waiting for something or someone to get too close. Yet despite being smaller than all of them, despite lacking claws, speed, or armor, the hominids survived. Not because they conquered nature, but because they learned to live within its rules. They learned to observe, to move carefully, to listen to the world around them, and respect the powers that governed it. Machaerus, for all its strength, would one day vanish. Its reign would end as climates changed and prey grew scarcer. Its adaptations, once perfect, would become limitations. But the hominids, fragile, fearful, quiet, would remain. And they would grow. One day, they would control fire. One day, they would shape tools not just to eat, but to build. One day, they would speak and remember and write. But 4 million years ago, they were just beginning. Every sunrise was a gift. Every day lived was a victory. And every footstep on the soil of that ancient earth was the first chapter in a story far greater than they could ever imagine.